Imagine some of the most powerful men in America involved in scandals, conspiracies, and even plots to overthrow the president. While U.S. history often highlights the valor and leadership of its presidents, there are also some dark chapters involving cover-ups, corruption, and even assassination attempts. From bribes and scandals to secret telegrams and whispers of coups, this is presidential history like you've never heard it before.
As the country reveled in its industrial growth, a scandal was bubbling beneath the surface.
Let's kick off with Credit Mobilier Scandal under President Ulysses S. Grant in 1872. You think insider trading and financial fraud are modern problems? Well, think again.
Our tale begins in the 1860s as the nation sought to connect its vast expanse by constructing the Transcontinental Railroad.
The Credit Mobilier Scandal rocked the U.S. government when it was revealed that a construction company, Credit Mobilier of America, had been created by Union Pacific Railroad insiders. Their scheme? Overcharging the federal government for the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad while pocketing the profits.
You see, Union Pacific's executives, including the shrewd Oakes Ames, a congressman and businessman, and Thomas Durant, the vice president of Union Pacific, created Credit Mobilier as a shield.
But that's not even the worst part. Several high-ranking government officials, including members of Congress, were bribed with discounted stock to keep quiet. Even Vice President Schuyler Colfax was implicated. While Grant himself wasn't directly involved, his administration was tainted by the corruption.
These strategic gifts ensured their recipients' silence. The veil of corruption spread wide, ensnaring over a dozen congressmen.
Scandal dragged on for years, and while some officials were censured, many involved walked away relatively unscathed. It's a prime example of how the railroad boom in America was built on a foundation of greed and exploitation. Now fast forward just 3 years to 1875, and Grant's presidency was hit again. Picture this: government agents, politicians, and whiskey distillers all working together to defraud the government out of millions of dollars in taxes.
The whiskey ring, the debacle that it was, and ultimately what I have characterized on several occasions as the most bitter disappointment of my life.
Distillers would bribe officials to reduce their tax payments, and the profits would then be pocketed by both parties. The scandal unraveled when Treasury Secretary Benjamin Bristow launched an investigation uncovering a massive web of corruption. Shockingly, Grant's own personal secretary, Orville Babcock, was implicated in the scheme. Grant, ever loyal to his friends, tried to defend Babcock, but the damage was done.
Now, what had happened that bred this unfortunate circumstance was, during the war, President Lincoln imposed a 70-cent per gallon tax on whiskey to raise money for the war effort. That continued into the tax did the Johnson administration, and indeed into my administration. I was not aware of it.
Though Babcock was acquitted, Grant's reputation took another serious blow, and the whiskey ring scandal highlighted just how corrupt the federal government had become in the post-Civil War era. Moving ahead to 1881, we have the tragic assassination of President James Garfield.
Last of the log cabin presidents. His father died before he was 2 years old, and so to put himself through college, his first year he was a janitor and a carpenter. By his second year, they made him assistant professor of literature and ancient languages.
James Garfield was only 4 months into his presidency when he was shot by Charles Guiteau, a disgruntled office seeker. But while Guiteau was clearly the gunman, conspiracy theories began swirling almost immediately. Some claimed that Garfield's assassination was orchestrated by factions within the Republican Party itself, particularly the Stalwarts, a political faction that opposed Garfield's push for civil service reform.
He called the presidency a bleak mountain. He knew that it was going to be a very difficult and lonely position to be in. And you know, this is the height of the spoils system.
The spoils system, under which anyone could petition the president in person for a government job, regardless of experience or ability.
The theory went that Guiteau, mentally unstable as he was, may have been manipulated or encouraged by political operatives who wanted Garfield gone to preserve their power. Though no hard evidence ever emerged to support these claims, the assassination left a lasting shadow on the Republican Party, and some still speculate about whether Guiteau acted alone, or if more sinister forces were at play behind the scenes. Let's jump to 1917 and talk about one of the most consequential conspiracies in American history, the Zimmerman telegram.
When the German Kaiser announced on January 31st, 1917, that U-boats would sink all ships in British waters, whether they were hostile or neutral, there seemed little choice but to enter the war. The discovery of the Zimmerman telegram cemented that decision.
World War I was raging, and the United States was doing its best to stay out of it. But everything changed when British intelligence intercepted a secret message from Germany to Mexico. Known as the Zimmerman telegram, this coded message proposed that Mexico should join forces with Germany in the event that the U.S. entered the war,
promising U.S. territory to Mexico in return for joining the German cause.
We make Mexico a proposal or alliance on the following basis: make war together, make peace together.
When the telegram was made public, Americans were outraged and helped shift the public opinion in favor of joining the war. But here's where things get tricky. Some people argue that President Woodrow Wilson may have known about the telegram long before it was made public and used it as a convenient excuse to enter the war. Whether Wilson truly manipulated the timing of its release or not, the Zimmerman telegram undeniably had a massive impact on U.S. foreign policy.
The U.S. fleet was mobilized and the Naval Reserve was called to colors. Congress voted an emergency war fund of $100 million. That's $3.7 billion in today's money.
Now let's move on to the 1920s and the notorious Teapot Dome scandal under President Warren G. Harding. This is one of the most infamous bribery scandals in American history.
Harding appointed several of his longtime political supporters to key government positions. These were posts that allowed these men to control, manipulate, and pilfer large sums of government money and resources.
The Teapot Dome was a naval oil reserve in Wyoming, and during Harding's administration, it was discovered that his Secretary of the Interior, Albert Fall, had secretly leased these oil reserves to private companies without competitive bidding. Why? Simple. Bribes. Fall accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash, bonds, and even livestock in exchange for these sweetheart deals.
This was legal at the time, but seen as unethical. As the U.S. Senate investigated the scandal, it was discovered that Fall had also become instantly wealthy following the lease agreement.
When the scandal broke, it shocked the nation and led to Fall becoming the first U.S. cabinet official to be convicted of a crime and go to prison. Harding, who was oblivious to the details of the scandal, died in office before the full extent of the corruption came to light. But the Teapot Dome scandal cemented Harding's legacy as one of the most corrupt presidents in U.S. history, even if he wasn't directly involved. Lastly, let's discuss the chilling business plot of 1933, which aimed to overthrow Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Joe McGuire's got a steel plate in his head. He was in World War I. He's a vet. He's a bond salesman, but he's also tied in as an executive for the Morgan Bank interests.
It sounds like something out of a spy thriller. A group of wealthy businessmen plotting to overthrow the U.S. government and install a fascist military regime. But this wasn't fiction. Retired Marine Corps General Smedley Butler, a highly respected figure, testified before Congress in 1934, claiming that he had been approached by several prominent businessmen who wanted him to lead a coup against FDR. Their goal?
So McGuire approaches Smedley Butler and he says, "We'd like you to lead an army of 500,000 veterans because we believe that FDR going off the gold standard is going to destroy the United States of America and its economy."
Plan as outlined to me was to form an organization of veterans, to use as a bluff, or as a club at least, to intimidate the government and break down our democratic institutions. The upshot of the whole thing was that I was supposed to lead an organization of 500,000 men, which would be able to take over the functions of government.
While the plot was never fully realized, Butler's testimony sent shockwaves through the nation. Though the businessmen deny the allegations, many historians believe Butler's story was credible. The business plot is a stark reminder that even in the land of the free, democracy has faced very real threats from within. So there you have it. 6 explosive conspiracies that shook the foundations of American politics in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. From bribery and corruption to assassination and attempted coups, these stories show us just how fragile power can be and how far some are willing to go to protect their interests. If you found this dive into presidential conspiracies fascinating, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell.